The talk today is called "I'll Be Here with You," which is a song David wrote that Christine is going to sing at the end. But I'll be here with you, and I thought about what does that mean? What does it mean? I'll be here with you, and to me it means God. What I call God can never be absent. And I think what'd be great if we all got a grasp on is we all have a different understanding of God, and the God that you believe in is the God that is always with you. And if you believe in an absence of any kind of presence, that's what's always with you. God's not going to intervene in our belief system. God's not a person. God is not, well, it might be if you still believe in the God you had as a child. I don't. I can't afford that God. That God's a little negative for me. And there's a little lack. There's a lot of lack in the God of my childhood. And remember, the God of my childhood was my parents' God. The God of my childhood was my mother's God, my grandparents' God, then interpreted, by me. And I got to be honest with you, those people make my God a little scary, and I didn't care for it very much. And so I had to if I was ever going to heal and become this magnificence you see before you now, I had to get on board with a new God. I still liked the word God. It made sense to me. And I knew I believed in a love that was there that could not be. And it was clearly not a love demonstrated by many of the adults in my house, except maybe my grandmother. But I still believed in a connection I had with something. And it was always with me. That God was always with me. And I remember it was 1988 when my grandmother, maybe it was 89, it doesn't matter. It was when my grandmother made her transition. And for weeks after, I felt like I was followed by my grandmother was right here. And what I knew as God, which was still pretty much personified, was right here, except clearly invisible. And everywhere I went, this energy was there and smiling at me and loving me. Loving me so much that about a month later, I sought a deeper healing from pretty poor behaviors and addictive patterns. And it was my first foray into that kind of healing and actually seeking help outside of my own head. I began to pray in earnest instead of fearfully. My prayer was, God, I need help, and I can't keep doing this by myself. And that was the realization, I think I'm doing this by myself, because I was self-reliant, and I was self-sufficient in my own way, in that I didn't trust anybody else, because I had, with good reason, the adults in my life had not been trustworthy. And they wanted to fix me if I was in pain, so I couldn't tell them I was in pain, because then it would be interpreted that I was broken. And I couldn't afford to see myself as broken anymore. I know there's at least one person in this room, maybe two, who when you see someone in pain, you want to rush and get rid of their pain. Any parents out here who no, I cannot tolerate that my child is in pain. Yeah, I cannot tolerate that my friend or my husband or my wife is in pain. I have to fix this. And no, you don't. How dare you treat these people like they don't also have God? That they don't have the everlasting presence available to them. I so admire parents who know that their children have this divine presence that they can call on whenever they want, if they want to. And so I don't have to see my children as broken. I don't have to see my children lacking because they are in pain. Is there anybody in this room that has never had a healing? Good. You've never had a healing? You've never gotten over a cold? Have you ever cried and stopped crying? Exactly, you're not still crying. What?
I thought you meant like some seance.
Oh, no, healing. I mean a healing. No, we don't do that here. There's a church in Greenwich that does that, but here, no. No, that we don't do. No exorcisms. We have no sin. We have no guilt. We have no hell. Yeah, that's what keeps us small. Everybody but two were laughing. Two over here just looking at me like, what? Why did my mother bring me here? I promise, it's a fun place, guys. I promise. So anyway, but a healing, has anybody ever not stopped crying? You've had tears and then you stop crying. So it tells me you can have a healing. You can have a realization, oh, this isn't what I thought it was. This isn't what the painful thing that I thought it was. It hurt at the time so much. And now it doesn't hurt that way anymore. What happened? Well, I had a realization, whether I knew it or not. You can call it God, you can call it whatever you want, but it's a realization of I don't have to look at it this way anymore. I can look at it in a different light. Has anything ever taken place in your life that you thought was the worst thing ever, and then a whole lot of good came from it? Yeah. So, who are we to think that's not always the case? That we could relax in our misery and say, oh, this is going to change. I'm going to see this differently in a minute. 10 minutes, 15 minutes, a moment.
20 years.
Whatever. But I'm going to see this differently. And the sooner I get on board with that, the sooner I will see it differently. The more I can realize, wait a minute, I'm fighting this. I don't want to see it differently. I want my pain. I want some of us, nope, you're not going to convince me that this is going to be different. You will not try to convince me. Well, and the funny part is, usually when we stop trying to convince each other, then we leave the space for everybody to see it differently. Do you understand that? Resistance, the law of non-resistance. When we resist someone's pain, they have to prove to us why they should be in pain. When we resist it, he and I prove that all the time, David and me. When we tell each other why it's not what you think it is, I will let you know how it is, the way I think it is. But if either one of us drop it, that suddenly there's space to see it differently, we're not trying to prove a point anymore. And it's really quite splendid. Am I getting a little feedback up here, Bob? A little feedback? Oh, it's cutting out? In a different light, I can see so much. And that's what I personally have given myself a lot of opportunities over the years to do, is to see my childhood in a different light, to see my parents in a different light, to see some of you in a different light, to see myself in a different light. I don't know if you know this, but I am bald. And I'm coming out of the closet, I'm bald. Now, growing up, I always heard bald was bad. Well, how foolish to agree with that. How foolish to agree that anything about my physicality is bad. That's not going to help my self-esteem. Not even a little bit. It's not going to enable me to see myself as a God being up here in the pulpit if I think that bald is bad. Now, I may have preferences. Now, he pictures me as a bald child. And you go on my Facebook page, I had a beautiful head of hair. That was pretty. And I'm pretty like this. I don't care what anybody thinks. I'm pretty like this. And if you disagree, do not tell me. It will not help your self-esteem. As I go through my day, I know there is a divine presence with me. I know it. And the only time I forget is if I get together with somebody to have a conversation proclaiming it isn't. When I talk about what's wrong in the world. And when I say talking about what's wrong in the world, I'm not talking about that I have hurt feelings. I'm talking about when I declare this is wrong and should not be happening, as if I know. I don't know. I see that it is happening, and I see that I think this way about it, and I feel this way about it. And they are two different things. And I want it to stop so I don't have to keep thinking this. And so I don't have to keep feeling this way. And sometimes it does not occur to me to go within to prayer and say, what is this? Show this to me in truth so that I don't have to hate it. So that I don't have to fear it and therefore hate myself or hate my life. I don't want to hate my life anymore because I think there are bad things. Because you see, if I see bad in the world, then I must somehow be bad, because how could I see bad? How could I even know what bad is if I weren't? And that's what we have to understand about our children and what we teach our children is, as a child, I didn't have these intellectual words for it. But if I saw bad, I had to have been bad. In the innocence of a child, how could I even know what this is unless I am it? I am identifying as what I think, what I believe. And so I need to shift my beliefs to know there is a divine presence with me at all times, not making decisions for me, but that is just love. There's a divine presence of love. I do what do you call that? Journaling with what I call spirit. And I attempt to do it every day. And I'd gotten off the track for a few years, and I've been back on lately. And I do it at breakfast with my iPad. I just write, "Good morning, Spirit," and I say what's on my mind, and I get answers. I absolutely get answers. I get responses, and I type what I hear. Now I want to be clear on this. This, what I understand as Spirit, never scolds me, never tells me to hurt myself, never tells me to hurt anybody else. Never embarrasses me, never seeks to shame me, never has any snarky comments. Because I wouldn't trust that voice. I wouldn't trust it at all. And anytime I've ever seen anything trying to come through like that, I say, "Oh, no, you don't. Shawn, that's your ego talking. Cut it out." I am only open to love in this responses. And the other day, I said, I need to know I'm loved. I'm having difficulty knowing it. I need signs that I am loved. And wrote back, "Then I will send you signs that you are loved." I said, "I want to know I'm prosperous and I am loved. I will send you signs." And I have witnessed signs every day since. Somebody's kind to me in a way. The other day, it was one kitty, one of our cats, who's been avoiding me for some reason. And the other day, he came up right against my leg to be picked up first thing in the morning. He doesn't normally do that. And so I picked it, and I thought, "Oh, this is a sign I am loved." See, they're subtle a lot of times, and we can negate them and say, "Oh, that can't be it." But it is it. The signs that we are loved are so simple. Someone who would normally be argumentative isn't. And years ago, right after my mother transitioned, and I was on a rocky emotional slide. And I had just started at Unity, but I had one teacher who yelled at us all the time. Every Thursday, I'd go to her class because it was a great class, but she would yell, "I am alive, learn, awake, joyous, enthusiastic about life. Show it." And she'd say it. And she'd yell at us. And it was like having a drill sergeant. And this one Thursday, Mary Alice Brown, you might remember her. And I would, this one Thursday, I thought, if she yells at me, I'm walking out. She was as gentle as could be that day. I got what I needed. I don't know if anybody else in the room needed the kindness and the gentleness that day, but I needed it. I pay attention to observing. I get what I need. And I'm willing to have a lot of good. You got to understand, they promised me a lot of good when I walked into Unity, and so I have expected it ever since. And it often surprises me when I don't see what I think of as good, to the point where I will throw a temper tantrum sometimes, especially at home. And because it just throws me. It's like, wait a minute. This is supposed to be easier. This is supposed to be lovelier. But if it isn't, is it somebody else's fault? Or have I forgotten? I'll be here with you. God is here with me. Love is here with me. Presence is here with me. Whatever it is here with me. And so to accept, it's a different, I need to see this differently. Harry Butterworth said once, and it's one of my favorite things of his, that said, "We are not here to set it right. We are here to see it rightly." And that's what it's all about in the correct perception. We are here to see things in love, not in the absence of love. For us to walk around declaring the absence of love all day, it's one thing to say, I'm having such a hard time seeing it in love. I'm really struggling and I want to. That's very different than saying there is no love here and I can prove it. You will never prove to me there's an absence of love. However, I may not like your company very much if you're trying to prove to me why there is an absence of love. And if I try to prove to you in that moment that there is a presence of love, you're not going to like me very well. And so it's not about proving it. I can't prove to you that there is a presence of love. I can't prove it to myself. I can only decide this is the way it is, and I wish to experience my life like this. And so then you can decide, oh, Shawn looks like he's happier. How did he do that? He said there's a presence of love. Maybe I'm going to try that. No, maybe I don't look happier to some of you. I don't know. But if you see somebody who seems to be happy all the time, what's that about? Who seems to be in a better mood more often than not? What's that about? They're not graced by God. They didn't get special dispensation in this life to be happier than everyone else. They're just not resisting the events. They're not declaring this should not be. They may know they don't want it to be this way. They have preferences. But they're not saying this should not be. They're not fighting it. They are, in their own way, knowing there is a divine presence. And they have different words for it. But anybody who's practicing it, they're practicing what I call the presence of God. I'm going to read this to all of us here. It comes from my favorite book, The Holy Spirit's Interpretation of the New Testament. Yellow book. And it's Matthew through Revelation, this book. And I really feel like I'm in the mind of Spirit in this book and when I read it. And this comes from Matthew 6, verse 5. And it says, your time with God is precious and holy. So seek for this time in quiet. Search your heart for what you would say or for what you would ask. Be not afraid of what you find there. God knows your heart. And God leads you according to your heart. But you may not know your own heart. So it is useful to seek there in quiet as you pray. For if you do not know the prayers of your heart, you may not recognize that they are answered. But when you seek out your prayers in quiet and ask of God based on what you find, you will see that your prayers are answered quickly. For God does not delay in answering the prayers of its child's heart. God is in the heart that leads his child to him or her. And so then I read in Hebrews, the peace of God is within. The peace of God is eternal, and it is never lost. The peace of God is realized and accepted based upon the power of your own decision. It's up to you. You may choose the peace of God, and you may choose turmoil. You make your choice based upon the desire that seems dearest to you. I love that. That turmoil may be the choice I make because turmoil is the desire that seems dearest to me. And one would say, well, who would ever think that? And I would say, well, depends on any given day, on any given time, which is dearest to me. My peace or my upset? Which do I want right now? Guilt or freedom? Which do I want right now? Which do I think is the most virtuous? So you see that you and I are choosing. You and I are choosing all the time what is here with us. The God, what we call God, this Spirit, loves us so much that it presents itself to us in the way that we choose to believe in it, in the way that we choose to practice it, in the way that we choose to experience it. And so you see, you do have a choice. I do have a choice. Today I choose love. Today I choose love. Say it with me. Today I choose love. Today I choose love. Today I choose love. So it is. Amen.